Today we have a soft and chewy, marshmallowy, chocolatey, graham cracker infused cookie. These are s'mores in chocolate chip cookie form, no campfire required, and they are perfect any time of year, but I really love them now. So get your oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and let's get rolling. The first thing you need is 1 cup of softened unsalted butter. Drop that right in our mixing bowl. And today's recipe could be made in your stand mixer if you want with a paddle attachment, but today I'm just going to be using my electric mixer. That works just as well. Next, for our sugar, we're doing 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, add that right in with the butter, and 3/4 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. And then we'll use our electric mixer to beat everything together until it's light and creamy and well combined. So just a quick note, creaming the ingredients well is really important at this stage with the butter and the sugar. We want things to be well distributed, light and fluffy. You don't want to see any discernible butter pieces. This is going to help whip some air into it and it's going to make the cookies a little bit thicker. If you don't mix it properly, you can end up with cookies that just spread a little bit too much. So this is just a really helpful step. And I do end up usually beating the butter and sugar together for like 2 to 3 minutes on high speed after I initially get them combined. Okay, next, our eggs. You'll need 2 large eggs for this recipe. Often with my cookie recipes, I'll recommend room temperature eggs. While that's totally fine, cold eggs actually work just fine with this recipe. We'll also add a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and we'll use our mixer to beat everything together again until the ingredients are well incorporated. This is nicely combined. Let me just do a quick scrape, make sure everything is well incorporated, which it is. So we'll just slide that out of the way. And you'll need a separate medium-sized mixing bowl for your dry ingredients. We start with 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour. Add that right into the bowl. Now here's where the graham cracker part comes in. You can't have a s'mores without graham cracker. So we're infusing the cookie dough with graham cracker crumbs. This is 1 1/4 cups of those crumbs. Add that right here. We're also going to add 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. This just helps keep the cookies from spreading too much, makes them a little bit thicker, helps them contain all of the add-ins we're going to be putting in there. If you want even thicker cookies, you can bump that up to a tablespoon. We also need a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. Go ahead and whisk everything together. We want these to be nicely incorporated. All right, let's bring back our wet ingredients and gradually add the dry ingredients into the wet. So I usually do this in like 4 parts, maybe 3 parts if I'm feeling ambitious. Pause here, scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl. The dough gets a little bit thick and stiff, that's normal. Also why we add the flour gradually so that our mixer can handle it and incorporate everything. Now it's time for our add-ins. I am going to be using some Hershey bars or milk chocolate bars, whatever milk chocolate bar you prefer, in this recipe, just because I feel like the chopped chocolate gives it a more authentic taste than just milk chocolate chips. But I will put a note in the description if you only have milk chocolate chips. They'll work. Now I do a blend of both because the Hershey bars are kind of expensive and because I like the varied texture. For the chocolate bars, I aim for about 6 ounces of chocolate, which in this situation is for, I believe these are standard sized bars. Anywhere between 5 and 6 ounces is going to be fine. I feel like they're always changing what size these bars are available in. So I wanted to give a couple measurements, but here I'm using 4 bars. I'm just gonna chop them up and just chop it into pieces that are not too large, pieces you wouldn't mind biting into. That looks pretty good to me. Let's bring this back. So we have our milk chocolate bars. And then I'll also add some milk chocolate chips. This is a cup of milk chocolate chips. I usually skim like a 1/4 cup off the top of that. Let me set these aside because I'm going to use them to decorate the cookies when they come out of the oven. Add the rest in here. And then I also have 2 cups of marshmallows, but I reserve about a 1/2 cup of those and put the rest right in here. Now we'll stir all this together, make sure we get all of the add-ins distributed. Just doing this by hand. Smells like s'mores in here. This is an old recipe I shared on my site many years ago. I mean, it must have been well over 6 years ago now, maybe 8. It's been a while. And it's just a very well-loved recipe. It always especially seems to gain popularity in the summer. And it was just about time I made a new video for it. We want those marshmallows nicely distributed. We'll talk a bit about those in a second because they can make things a little complicated, but it's fine. I know how to work with them. All right, I don't chill this dough. There's no chilling required. However, if you're baking these cookies on a particularly warm day and your butter's a little bit melty, you may find they're spreading a little bit. In that case, just cover them, pop them in the fridge for 30 minutes and then try again. If your butter gets really warm, it can just make them spread. Also, this dough's fine if you do want to just make it ahead and then, scoop and bake it the next day or 2 days later. That's no problem. So I'm going to scoop I think officially in the recipe I call for like heaping 1.5 tablespoons, but I've been making them a little bit bigger, closer to like 2.5 tablespoons recently. The dough can get a little bit messy, so one thing I like to do is just kind of tuck the marshmallows inside. Any marshmallow that's exposed is going to kind of explode a little bit and spread out on your baking sheet, which is fine, but it is messy. So if you tuck them in, you're just going to have a neater cookie, and then I roll the cookies into a ball, which also makes them a little bit tidier. There is a little bit of marshmallow. I'll put that guy facing up, which will help kind of contain him some. Cookie number 2, pull a little bit more dough to cover this marshmallow. And the marshmallows kind of disappear while the cookies are baking. So when you break into the cookie, it's not that you can really see the marshmallow, but you can taste it and feel it. Like it adds that gooey element that we're searching for. Also, we reserved some marshmallows that we're going to press on top after they've baked. This one's probably gonna be a little bit messy. No, it's good for you to see how it looks. We're gonna let that go. I'm totally not being lazy. I just want to show you. All right, these are going in the center rack of our 350 preheated oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. They're going to need to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes. Since I did make mine a bit bigger, they're probably going to be closer to that 12 number. All right, now we're gonna move really quickly here because you can see the cookies, we had some marshmallows spill out and some of them aren't totally round. Not a big deal, but I'm kind of a cookie perfectionist, so I'm going to just take a pair of spoons and scoot the cookies in to make them a little bit more round. And again, I made these a little bit bigger than I normally make my cookies. I just wanted them to be a little more gourmet today, showing off to you. This is where some marshmallow was exposed, so it leaked out a bit. No problem, I'll usually probably just cut that off. Okay, so the cookies are going to taste great just as they are here, but we want them to look really great too. And right now they look fine, but they could look prettier. So remember, we reserved some of our chocolate chips here. We're just going to nestle a few of them into the cookies. And then in some of the cookies, you'll have some marshmallow peeking through, which I love when that happens, like when you can see it and it didn't just melt all over your cookie sheet. But I want to add a little bit more, both for appearance and for texture. So I'll take my mini marshmallows that we set aside, and the best way to do this is just kind of cut them in half, and then just take that half and gently nestle it into the cookies. Sticky side down. You can cut your marshmallows beforehand if you prefer. It'll save you a little time. And you do need to do this while the cookies are still warm, otherwise they're not going to stay. I forgot to mention that usually when you pull these out of the oven, you want them to be slightly underbaked, so let them finish cooling completely on the baking sheet so they finish baking all the way through. If you feel like yours were not slightly underbaked, let them cool for a couple of minutes, like maybe 5 minutes, and then remove them to a cooling rack to cool completely. Personally, I need this baking sheet, so I'm going to move these guys over. Fragile when warm. Made these a bit smaller just so you can kind of see your sizing options. All right, once your cookies have cooled, we can go ahead and break into them. Let's take a look at this guy. Still a little bit melty, but that's how I like them. If you try these, let me know what you think. I really do always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Break it again. This is such a good cookie. Chef? He's like, I don't even know my name. Who is Chef? The weather starts to warm up a lot, and when it starts to cool down, and you start having bonfires.
It starts to warm up and cool down?
Yeah.
Okay.
But is that too confusing?
Yeah, it was a little weird.
Okay. Oh no! I get too aggressive because like I just want the cookies made, so I just crank up the speed. I'll do that again.